चल पड़ी तू किस रस्ते यू दीवानी, तू कलम खुद लिख ले अपनी कहानी। किस्मत की लकीरें छोड़ दे, तेरी भूख से बदले रोज ये, झूठी पड़ जाए ये दुनिया सारी।
Hi everyone, I'm Wajiha Saqib, a doctoral student of Education Policy and Planning at the University of Texas at Austin. My research interest is gender in education, specifically in the context of my home country, Pakistan. In today's podcast, I want to discuss the issue of girls' education. You might have heard about high dropout rates and low retention rates of girls in K-12 education in many developing countries like Pakistan. When talking about Pakistan, most of you might have heard that conservative religious mindsets of parents in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan lead to a higher dropout rates of girls. Today, I want to take this opportunity to clarify some of the misconceptions about girls' education and its association with the conservative Islamic belief system. According to statistical data in 2020, in Pakistan, 37% of girls between the ages of 5 and 16 are out of school. This data is reported by the Pakistani Bureau of Statistics. In total, currently, there are about 12 million out-of-school girls in Pakistan. Why is this so? The general perception is that most parents in Pakistan don't want to get their daughters educated. It is most commonly perceived that these Muslim parents do not want to educate their daughters because of their Islamic beliefs. Yet, the situation is not as simple as saying that Islam is the direct cause of hindering girls' education, as viewed by many. For me, it is important to get into the heart of the reasons for girls' low enrollment and retention in schools in Pakistan. I do not see this problem operating in binaries. It is not that simple to say that the issue is whether getting girls educated is Islamically good or bad. Education of girls in Pakistan is more nuanced than this simple explanation, and it is very complex. And therefore, I want to delve deeper into this issue by making the voice of the parents of these girls to be heard through this podcast. In this podcast, I would bring to you the views of various Pakistani parents from some of the most marginalized communities from the province of Sindh and the Federal Capital Territory. Their views will help us understand how they perceive girls' education and for what reasons do people in these communities allow or do not allow their daughters to go to school. Before we go on to listen to their views, I would like to bring to your attention what research says on this issue. Research shows that there are many infrastructural reasons for girls to drop out of school. Some villages in Pakistan do not have a girls' school close by, and to attend school, many girls have to travel to another village. In some cases, when girls reach puberty, parents don't feel comfortable sending their daughters to school, which have unisex bathrooms, and in some cases, no bathrooms at all, which is mostly the case with a lot of schools in these remote areas. So they make their daughters drop out of school. Research also shows that girls drop out of school because the local religious leaders influence the parents into believing that they should marry their daughters young or not to send their daughters to school with boys. As we see, while all these reasons for girls dropping out of school are true, yet all these do not mean that parents object to girls' education on the basis of their Islamic belief system alone, or to say Islamic belief system at all. How parents perceive education for girls and what they end up deciding for their daughters is not always aligned for various reasons. Many parents don't have the logistics or the resources to send their daughters to school, or at other times they cannot provide security to their daughters while traveling to and from school, especially if the schools are really far, and so eventually girls drop out of school. These and many such reasons tell us that there is a more complex picture of the actual situation, and in some cases, Islam has nothing to do with it. In most cases, there are patriarchal values intersecting with economic conditions that lead to girls dropping out of school. But these patriarchal values are most of the time tied with the culture and tradition. To understand how these parents who lack resources and struggle to make ends meet perceive girls' education and how much of their Islamic beliefs play a part in influencing this perception is something that I want to elucidate through this podcast. My interviews with parents from these rural communities has helped me to do that. I also got the opportunity to talk to some of the volunteers and organizers working on children's education in these communities on this issue. Conversations with them have helped me understand the complex dynamics of religious beliefs, economic hardship, and gender norms and how they intersect. The community in Sindh that I reached out to consists of families that belong to the lower socioeconomic strata of the society. Most of the people in these communities are daily wage laborers, farmers, and people with blue-collar jobs. These people live in small neighborhoods in Hyderabad. All the people who I talked to have been associated with an organization called Coin the Education. Coin the Education is a citizen-led movement that works for the education of children of farmers and laborers, mostly in Sindh, Balochistan, and southern Punjab. Most of the parents that I interviewed were funded by Coin the Education for their children's education. Imtiaz, who is a working lady, is a guardian of 4 girls. These girls are Imtiaz's nieces and after losing their mother have been in the guardianship of Imtiaz. The 4 girls are studying in middle and primary school. While talking about her community and the perceptions of girls' education in her community, Imtiaz said,
बच्चे जा नहीं सकते, दूर हैं, बच्चियों के वरी वो जो जिस तरह ये माहौल चल रहा है आजकल का जी, जैसे लोग डरे हुए हैं तो हमारी बच्चियां बाहर जाएगी, कुछ सीन न हो जाए, ये सीन हो जाए, वो सीन हो जाए, तो इस वजह से डर रहे हैं कुछ लोग और कुछ वसाइल की वजह से।
ठीक, और जब वसाइल नहीं होते तो फिर अगर उनको अपने बेटों को पढ़ाना हो या बेटियों को पढ़ाना हो तो लोग किसको ज्यादा पढ़ाना प्रेफर करते हैं? लड़कों को। और उसकी क्या वजह है?
उसकी ये वजह है तो वो बोलते हैं ये लड़के हैं, ये पढ़ लिख कर जाएंगे, ये नौकरियां करेंगे, हमारा घर बस जाएगा। मतलब लड़कियों को इतनी अहमियत नहीं देते।
ठीक है, और आपको लगता है कि वो इसलिए क्योंकि उनके वसाइल कम है या उनको लगता है कि मजहब की वजह से वो लड़कियों को नहीं पढ़ाना चाहते, इस्लाम की वजह से वो पढ़ाना नहीं चाहते लड़कियों को, उनको ऐसा कुछ लगता है या बस वसाइल की वजह से वो नहीं पढ़ाना चाहते?
नहीं मैम, वो वसाइल की वजह से नहीं पढ़ना चाहते, वो चाहते हैं कि हमारे पास इतने वसाइल नहीं है, हमारे बेटे पढ़ लिख के बड़े आदमी बन जाएं या नौकरी में हो जाएं तो वो बेहतर होगा।
ठीक है,
वसाइल की वजह से। हमारी फैमिली में तो ऐसा है वसाइल की वजह से, बाकी और का तो पता नहीं, इस्लाम की वजह से तो नहीं, हमारी फैमिली में ये मसला है।
As this snippet from Imtiaz's interview showed us that many families in her community do not send their daughters to school because of lack of resources or for reasons for girls' safety because the schools are far. Sometimes it is because the environment is unsafe for the girls to go out and their traditional values make them fear what if something happens to their daughter either on their way to school or in school. But Imtiaz's parents thought differently and educated her, and Imtiaz wants to do the same for her nieces. Talking to Rahib, a father of 2 daughters, who is a daily wage earner residing in the city of Hyderabad, we get a similar picture. All his kids go to school. His 2 daughters are in middle school and high school. Rahib is a big supporter of children's education, especially girls' education, and has high ambitions for his daughters as well as his sons. While talking about girls' education in Pakistan, specifically in his community, Rahib said,
हमारे जो पाकिस्तान के अंदर अक्सरियत लड़कों की ज्यादा होते हैं, लड़कियों को नहीं होते। जो बलोची सिस्टम है, हमारी रवाज है, रवाजों में जो ये लड़कियां दुपट्टा नहीं पहन रहा, लड़कियां ऐसी नहीं करे, लड़कियां ऐसी नहीं करे, और उसमें वाहिद शख्स हूँ मैं, कहता हूँ कि मेरी बच्चियां ऐसे नहीं है तो मेरी बच्चियां मर्दों की तरह मर्दों की बराबर तक खड़ी होके तालीम करें।
बिल्कुल, आप बताएंगे कि आप क्यों सोचते हैं कि लड़कियों की तालीम बहुत अहम है, आप क्यों सोचते हैं कि वो लड़कों के बराबर हैं आपकी लड़कियां और वो तालीम हासिल करें, उसके बारे में आप कुछ मजीद बताना चाहेंगे कि आप ऐसा क्यों सोचते हैं?
तो देखो, हमारे जो पुराने जमाने में जो लड़कियां होते थे, जो लड़कों की जब शादियां होते थे, उनको कानून की पता नहीं होते थे, चीजों को पता नहीं होते थे, और इनको धमकाना करना। आजकल जो जमाना है तालीम, जो जब उसको कानून की पता लगेगा कि जी मैं तेरे को पालने से मैं खुद पाल भी सकता हूँ बेबी, वो यही कहते हैं कि जी मैं आपको भी चला सकूंगा घर, आपका भी घर चला लेगा, मैं भी चला सकता। आजकल जमाने में मियाँ बीबी तालीम लाजमी।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। अच्छा, मैं ये पूछना चाहती हूँ कि क्या लड़कियों को तालीम दिलवाने में ज़्यादा मुश्किलात आती हैं? क्या ये पाकिस्तान में ख़ास तौर पर जहाँ पर आप रहते हैं वहाँ पर क्या लड़कियों को पढ़ाना ज़्यादा मुश्किल है लड़कों से? क्या वसाइल की कमी है या कोई इस तरह के मसले हैं?
जी जी जी, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल है, मसले है। बच्चियां बेचारी रोडों पे खड़े होते हैं, और आजकल जमाना उनको बच्चियों को गंदी तरीके से लोग देखते रहते हैं बच्चियों को। इसी वजह से जो माशरा होता है, अपनी बिरादरी वाले लोग होते हैं, यार लड़की आपकी रोडों में जा रहा है, ये अच्छी नहीं है, ये नहीं। इस माशरे की वजह से काफी लोग अपनी बच्चियों को तालीम से महरूम रखा है। तो हम यही चाह रहे कि नहीं, हमारी बच्चियां भले बेशक रात को सड़कों में घूम के मर्दों की तरह बराबरी में न करे, और इंसाफ की और गरीबों के लिए कुछ आगे बढ़ के तालीम होगा तो किसी गरीब का भलाई करेगा, कहीं नौकरी होगा तो उसकी गरीब की भलाई करेगा। लड़की हम कहते हैं लड़कों के बराबर होना चाहिए।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। अच्छा,
Rahib also mentioned that he's the only man from his family who has come to the city and supports girls' education. While talking about the mindset of the people in his village and his family about girls' education and empowerment, he said,
तो वो लोगों के जो रवाज है, खानदानी सिस्टम है, उनकी अपनी नस्ल पे नस्ल जैसे पैदा होते रहती, नस्ल पे नस्ल उसी तरह जमहूरत की गुर्बत पे लड़कियों को अपनी कैद में रख के और अपनी पावर में रखते, अपनी कंट्रोल में रखते, उनको बुलंदी आवाज आगे छोड़ते नहीं है जी।
ठीक है, तो आपको लगता है कि क्या ये लोग ये समझते हैं कि इस्लाम जो है वो इजाज़त नहीं देता लड़कियों को पढ़ाने की या लड़कियों को नौकरी करने की, या ये इनके रवायात हैं?
नहीं, इनकी रवायत की वजह से हो रहा है। इस्लाम को कोई हक नहीं, इस्लाम तो अपनी जगह पे।
बिल्कुल। तो आपको लगता है कि कोई मौलवी वगैरह या कोई इस तरह मजहबी लोग इनको मना करते हैं, या ये चीज़ें इनको पहले से ही ये ऐसे ही सोचते हैं?
नहीं नहीं नहीं, मौलवी सपोर्ट करते हैं, दीनी इस्लामी में सपोर्ट करते हैं, मदरसे में सपोर्ट करते हैं, आगे बढ़ने के लिए सपोर्ट करते हैं, लेकिन इनकी अपनी खानदानी जो पेशे होता है, जो अपनी जो जज्बा होता है, उनकी जो वायरस होता है, वो अपनी खानदानी।
Rahib's interview shows us that people in his community do not send their daughters to school because of lack of resources, mainly economic hardship, and the cultural and traditional values of the community that restrict girls' freedom. Both Rahib and Imtiaz indicated that it is not these people's Islamic beliefs that stop them from sending their daughters to school, but rather their traditional and ancestral family values. The centuries-old patriarchal values that restrict women's freedom and domesticate them make these families believe that a woman's place is within the four walls of the house, and education is not for them. Rahib specifically indicated that Islam has nothing to do with this belief system, and that the religious leaders in his community encourage girls' education. Talking to another daily wage earner, Ghulam Nabi, who has a food cart where he sells vegetable fritters, and like Rahib is a daily wage earner, we hear a similar story. Ghulam Nabi is a father of two daughters. One is a toddler while the other goes to primary school. In his extended family, most children go to school, but he says that most of his relatives focus more on their sons' education. While some girls in his extended family have gotten an education and are teachers now, there are some who have not received an education. Ghulam Nabi is very ambitious about his daughter's education and says that his older daughter wants to be a judge when she grows up. While talking about how girls' education is perceived in his community, He mentioned
किसी के पास पैसे नहीं है, किसी की वजह से नहीं पढ़ा सकते, कोई जो है अना की वजह से नहीं पढ़ा रहा।
हाँ, और किस उसमें अना में क्या 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 किस चीज़ की अना होती है कि क्या उनकी सोच क्या होती है?
बस उसकी सोच है, हर किसी की सोच अपनी अपनी है ना बेटा।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
किसी की सोच सही है, किसी की सोच गलत जाती है, तो बेटी पढ़ लिख कर क्या करेगी। लेकिन ये तो बेटा भी पढ़ लिख कर नौकरी करेगा, कर सकता है, तो बेटी भी कर सकती है ना।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
बेटी
बिल्कुल।
को भी ये हक है ना, बेटी को भी बिल्कुल ये हक है, वो जॉब कर सकती है, पढ़ सकती है। उसी को बंद करने में या उसको नहीं बाहर भेजने में, पढ़ाने में कोई हर्ज नहीं है।
मैं ये जानना चाहती हूँ कि जो लोग लड़कियों को नहीं पढ़ाते उनके वो क्या समझते हैं कि वो क्या जो आपके जानने वाले जो हैं या जिस तरह से आपने कहा कि कुछ लोग नहीं पढ़ाते अना में आकर, तो उन वो क्या समझते हैं कि मजहब इजाजत नहीं देता लड़कियों को पढ़ाने का, या वो इस तरह से कुछ समझते हैं?
नहीं, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है।
Ghulam Nabi's views show that there are parents from the remote areas of Pakistan who do want to educate their daughters. It also made us aware that there are also people like Ghulam Nabi's community who do not support girls' education, and they do so because of their egos and narrow mindsets. And as our interviewee stated, their mindsets have nothing to do with their Islamic beliefs. Imtiaz, Rahib, and Ghulam Nabi were parents from the city of Hyderabad who originally belonged to the villages in Sindh and Balochistan. They give us a snapshot of how girls' education is perceived in the rural areas of Pakistan. We also got the opportunity to talk to Agha Shakil, the founder of Coin the Education, to understand the views of the perceptions of the general communities with which he works. Agha talked about the communities and how parents in these communities usually think of girls' education. He pointed at various causes of girls not attending schools in these areas of Sindh, Balochistan, and Punjab. He also talked about how Islamic beliefs of these parents come into play when sending their daughters to school or when deciding not to allow them to have an education. Let's see what he has to say. Agha initiated the conversation with talking about his initiative, Coin the Education, and then talked about the communities he works with.
Coin the Education is a campaign of a common citizens which advocates and provides an educational scholarship to the children of laborers, small farmers, and the orphans. और हमने जो community identify किए, it is also in a political argument, because this is the community which is exploited economically, socially, and intellectually. So ये वो आज के बच्चे हैं जिनके पास अगर पढ़ना भी चाहें तो they don't have the resources to complete their educational requirements. मैं एक किताबों से तो दूर हूँ, लेकिन मेरी एक बड़ी छोटी सी असेसमेंट ये है कि जो 400 से 600 रुपए छोटे छोटे टाउन्स में कमा रहा है, उसको उसके बच्चे के लिए, उसकी बेटी के लिए उसको स्कॉलरशिप चाहिए हर 15 दिन के बाद, एक कॉपी और एक पेंसिल के लिए, कि वो स्कूल में पढ़ सके, और वो 130 रुपए की इस वक्त बनती है। तो 600 रुपए कमाने वाला बंदा एक माह के 22 दिन कमा रहा है, 22 दिन में से किस दिन पे वो 150 रुपए स्पेयर करे कि वो उसको वो लेके दे।
When Agha was asked about the perception of these communities on girls' education, he identified 3 types of thinking in the communities. He said,
एक तो ऐसे भी लोग हैं, अगर मोटी मोटी बास्केट्स में डालें, एक तो ऐसे लोग हैं जो बच्चियों की तालीम में कोई फर्क नहीं रखते, लड़की हो लड़का हो, और वो बच्चों को पढ़ाना चाहते हैं, लेकिन उनके रिसोर्सेज कम है। एक ऐसे लोग हैं जो के देहातों में वो बेटियों को नहीं पढ़ाना चाहते कि कल्चरल रीजंस है, लोकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट के पॉलिटिकल कल्चरल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, और वो बुनियादी तौर पे दो चीजों से जुड़े हुए हैं मुझे लगता है। एक इकोनॉमिक्स से, दूसरा फैसिलिटीज से। फिर वो जो अपने आप को कवर करते हैं वो रिलीजियस शेल्टर करते हैं अपने आप को छुपाने के लिए कि कहीं मेरी दूसरी कमजोरी है, फिर मैं ये कह के जान छुड़ा लेते हैं कि भाई शादी करानी है, दीन में शादी की हो, लेकिन उनकी इंटेंशन नहीं होती। वो इस वजह से कि जब उनको कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है तो वो पढ़ाते हैं। अगर एजुकेशन उनके करीब आ जाए तो वो पढ़ाते हैं। वो फिर बेटी को बहुत आगे तक लेकर जाना चाहते हैं। तीसरे लोग हैं जो कि चंद हैं, वो नहीं पढ़ाना चाहते, वो बेटी को नहीं पढ़ाना चाहते। उसका रीजन उनकी अपने अपने स्टेट के अंदर रिलीजियस अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, जो कि रिलीजन की अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं है, उनकी अपनी टुवर्ड्स द रिलीजन। वो फिर यही है ना कि कितने हमारे मजहब की अंडरस्टैंडिंग कितनी है।
Identifying the main causes for parents to not send their daughters to school in the rural and urban populations of the communities he works with, Agha elaborated.
जो पहले शहर के लोग हैं उनकी तो सीधी सीधी बात है, उनकी माशत प्रॉब्लम है, इकोनॉमी प्रॉब्लम है,
बिल्कुल,
और एजुकेशन बहुत एक्सपेंसिव है। दूसरी लाइफ की यूटिलिटीज भी है और एजुकेशन भी एक्सपेंसिव है, तो वो सारी चीजें माशत के साथ जुड़ी हुई। दे डोंट हैव द रिसोर्सेज टू अफोर्ड देयर एजुकेशन, दे डोंट हैव द रिसोर्सेज टू बाय needed items like stationery, uniform, shoes, transportation to make the distance covered by any vehicle for their children who can transport. And children have to be transported to their school. And they can't afford like a $10, $20 to $25 every month just transport their children. Or if they want their children to go in a nearer school, the school quality is compromised. But even though they can't afford the fees, and schools are limited, population is very high for the public sector government school. So government schools host all the population of children. So these are the problems people living in the cities. Now come to the point, another point, कि जो देहातों में बच्चे हैं जो कि अब के मसले क्या हैं जी। मैं एक केस स्टडी उठा लेता हूँ डॉक्टर रुथ कौर स्कूल की। वो कहाँ से जनाब 50-40 सेंटीग्रेड गर्मियों के 8-9 माह बच्ची को 5-6 किलोमीटर पैदल भेजे जी, या किस भेजे। फिर उसके बाद गवर्नमेंट के जो करीबी स्कूल है वो स्कूल चल नहीं रहा, उस्ताद आ नहीं रहे। ठीक है, लड़की की उम्र 5वीं तक हो जाती है, तकरीबन 10, 11, 12 साल। तो गांव के लोगों के लिए 10, 11, 12 साल तो शादी की होती है, तो उनके लिए लगता है कि हम जवान लड़की को छोड़ रहे हैं बाहर। उसकी जवान लड़की बाहर गई तो जनाब फिर मर्द हजरात भी पीठ पे हाथ लगाएंगे,
बिल्कुल,
ताल पे हाथ लगाएंगे, लड़के को नहीं छोड़ते वो तो। उनके लिए तो लड़की एक सॉफ्ट जिस्म है अभी। वो टीचर अगर ना भी लगाए तो बाप को खुद जो है टेंशन होती है, उसको डर लग रहा होता है, नर्व सिस्टम उनका कमजोर है, मेरी बेटी बाहर नहीं गई। रोज उसको बेटी जब बाहर भेजता है तो उसको ये लगता है कि अब आएगी तो पता नहीं उसका कोई फिजिकली अब्यूज हो चुकी होगी, उसके माइंड में साइकिल चल रही होगी, क्योंकि वो भी कभी उसने भी मैं भी ऐसा ही किया हो, तो उसको भी यही लग रहा होता है। वो इज्जत तो उनकी अपनी सिर्फ बेटी होती है, दूसरी बेटी या दूसरी लड़की तो अच्छा। औरत को तो आप पहले ही कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, रिश्ते के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इज्जत समझते हैं। भाई किसी की बेटी है, किसी की बहन है, भाई उसके बस जरूरी है बेटी है तो इज्जत है, बहन है तो इज्जत है।
बिल्कुल।
आई डोंट बिकम लाइक व्हाई यू आर, मैं बेटी है तो इज्जत है, क्या मतलब? भाई एक इंसान है बस, जैसे तुम इंसान हो वैसे वो इंसान है। तो वो ये सारे जो फियर्स है ना, सोशली क्राफ्टेड फियर्स, ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा बैरियर है। और ये क्यों है? इसका रीजन है कि समाज में है ये चीज, चाइल्ड अब्यूज बहुत है।
हम्म,
अच्छा, फिर उसकी प्यूबर्टी जो है वो एक बड़ा सवाल है।
हम्म,
वॉशरूम है नहीं,
बिल्कुल।
दूसरे है नहीं, तो वो फिर टेबू बन गए, वो फिर स्टोरी ऑफ द विलेज बन जाएगी
हम्म,
कि भाई नूर मोहम्मद की बेटी इज लाइक अब मुझे वो इंग्लिश का वर्ड तो नहीं है, उसकी मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल शुरू हो गई,
हम्म,
स्कूल में बैठी थी,
हम्म,
अब ऐसी नाम है वो लोकल, तो वो फिर हर दुकान की स्टोरी होगी।
हम्म,
ये फिर कल्चरल फैक्टर्स हैं ये। फिर इकोनॉमिकल फैक्टर्स भी हैं इसके अंदर जुड़े हुए कि भाई अब बेटी को पढ़ाऊं कि बेटे को पढ़ाऊं, बेटी की कल शादी हो जाएगी, फिर मेरी माशत, ये सारी चीजें चल रही होती है। और उनको ये समझ में नहीं आता कि बेटा पढ़ाने के बाद वो वो कहता है कि अब मेरा मैच ही नहीं है, तो मैं अब कैसे ऐसी लड़की से शादी करूं जिसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग ही नहीं है उसके, उसकी लाजमी बात है कि आप उसको उसका लाइफ साइकिल चेंज कर देते हैं, फिर आप उसको एक लाइफ पार्टनर ऐसा कैसे वो अडॉप्ट करें?
बिल्कुल। As Aga summarized beautifully the reasons for different types of parents who allow or disallow their daughter to go to school, he has also shown us that in rural and urban centers, the causes are different. But one thing that is clarified through this interview, which endorses what the parents that we talked to said, is that most parents do not educate their daughters or prefer their sons' education over their daughters is because of economic or cultural reasons. Religion has often nothing to do with it. Aga clearly stated that there is a very small minority who believe that religion does not allow girls' education. He has also identified a specific type of parent who guise their economic deprivation in religious logic, which, according to Aga, is just a guise. But Aga mentioned that when they are provided the resources, these same parents educate their daughters as well as their sons. What this tells us is that in Pakistan, people don't educate their daughters because they don't have the resources and because of cultural reasons like non-availability of bathrooms for adolescent pubescent girls, and that is why parents would not send them to school. There were other reasons like girls' harassment while going to and from school, and even sometimes in the school as well, due to which parents would be scared to send their daughters to school. Another economic reason is that parents think that their daughter will marry and go to her husband's house, and so if they spend on the daughter's education, when she would earn, it will benefit her husband's family only and not the parents. So they prefer educating their sons who will earn for them in older age. Again, this is an economic reason which is based on traditional patriarchal values. So, people's religious beliefs have nothing directly to do with their way of thinking about girls' education. To second these findings, I talked with two girls living in the urban slums of Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. Islam Khana is one of the girls. She is a master's student of computer science hailing from a Kachi Abadi, a slum area in Islamabad. She has been funded a scholarship by a local NGO that works for the education of youth in her area. Islam Khana says that in her extended family, girls are not educated, but her mother thought differently. Her mother believes that in Islam, boys and girls have an equal right to get an education. Although Islam Khana's mother is not educated, but migrating to the city from her village, her mother realized that education opens doors for a lot of opportunities for both girls and boys. So, Islam Khana's mother convinced her husband and he agreed because the NGO was ready to fund his daughter's education. so he did not have the additional burden of that expenditure. Another girl, Maryam Bashir, who has also done her master's and is now a teacher, comes from the same community. Maryam's family also migrated to the city from a nearby village. In her extended family too, girls are not allowed to get an education or work outside the house. Both Islam Khana and Maryam said that most people in their neighborhood who live in the Kachi Abadi have the same mindsets as their extended family living in the city, as well as some of them residing in the villages. Some of the reasons that Islam Khana and Maryam listed for not educating girls in their communities and neighborhoods are lack of economic resources, financial instability. The schools are far away from their neighborhood, and so transport for school is expensive, and the families living in these areas don't have a vehicle to provide pick and drop to their daughters. So, for their daughters to go alone by foot is risky, as there is a lot of street harassment and child abuse. The idea that the daughter will once get an education and earn, then she will become independent and her income would only benefit her in-laws and not her own family, her parents' family. And so the parents prefer spending on their son's education so that they can support them financially. Another reason is the idea that an educated girl is a modern girl and might get too independent and would not easily get married. And so her independence would be looked down upon by the society because she would do as she pleases and is considered someone whose honor is compromised. Since a woman's honor and her being good is associated with the family's honor, an independent woman compromises the family's honor in the eyes of the society. Maryam mentioned that the people in her community who are not in favor of girls' education do not have that stance due to their Islamic beliefs. In fact, their stance stems from how their elders in the family think and have done this traditionally through decades. Maryam's parents went against the family and educated their daughters because when the NGO provided them the opportunity to get an education, they took it as the economic hurdle of an education expense was removed. The interesting question then is that if the NGO would not have provided education to these girls, Maryam and Islam Khana in this case, would their families have preferred to spend their limited resources on their son's education or on their daughter's education, or both? Islam Khana and Maryam's accounts give us a similar picture as the parents from Coin the Education and Aga showed us. So, to summarize the findings, I would say that the main reason for girls not being allowed an education in the poor, rural and urban centers in Pakistan are economic and cultural. People's Islamic beliefs do not play a part in influencing this decision. Even when religion is used as an excuse, it is a cover for their economic deprivation, and once that hurdle is removed, parents are more open to girls' education. Within cultural reasons, we see tradition, gender norms, the patriarchal setup of the girls getting married and going to live with their husband's family, the view of an independent modern girl as someone whose honor has been compromised, and most importantly, lack of proper facilities and infrastructure in schools, access to schools, and the prevalent harassment of girls are some of the issues that make parents disallow their daughters to get an education. And last but not the least, education is expensive and poor people don't have the resources to meet that expense, and this is what hinders girls' education in the marginalized communities in Pakistan.
तू नहीं कमजोर आ लगा ले जोर कर बुलंद परचम में से हमारा के देखे दुनिया तेरी हिम्मत ऐसी जुस्तुजु तेरी नाजुक कह के वार करे जो तोड़ दे उंगली रस्में सारी तोड़ के आए अब सुने मन की मिट्टी की गुड़िया ना समझे अब हमें कोई